Hello and welcome. I am Suave Beardson, and today we're going to go through how to set up the Baldur's Gate Dark Alliance 2 Autosplitter. There's a couple different ways to do it. I'm going to go through a really simple process that I've made, and then kind of go through a little bit more of a detailed process towards the end to customize it a little bit. But just to get you up and running, this should get you going just fine. So I've already got the zip folder that you'll download right here on my desktop, and LiveSplit is open already right here. So first thing I'm going to do is obviously extract it to wherever you'd like. So there's that. And then let's just go through these files real quick just so I can kind of explain what they are. So this one here, these 4 files right here are your split files. This is what you'll load into LiveSplit, and it'll be the name of all your splits. So there's full route subsplits. Subsplits are a way of grouping splits together to kind of make a more streamlined look to Autosplitter. And then there's main splits only, Main+Boss splits, and then Main+Boss subsplits. So these are exactly the same with the same amount of splits, but one is grouped and one is not. And so that partially that's there so I can show an example of what the difference between the two is, but also there to just to use if you prefer one over the other. But for all intents and purposes, these 2 split files are the same. This is the actual Autosplitter script. This is a layout that I've pre-made that includes both the real-time timer and a load remove timer. Baldur's Gate Dark Alliance 2 uses real-time and does not use load remove or anything like that for the runtime. So the load remover is just there for, at this point, experimental purposes. I'll go over that some more in a little bit. So as for the release notes, the main difference from version 1 to version 2 is the full run splits, which there's now a split on every single room throughout the run. Some of them are only a couple seconds long, but I wanted to include more than what you might need so you could then remove them later if you wanted to, or just have the most detailed split layout you could possibly want. And then I'll go over this in a little bit, but you can also, here's also my contact information. If you have any issues or suggestions or questions on anything, reach out to me either on Discord or you can email me. Those my email will also be in the description. You can also just comment on this video. So first things first, I'm going to open LiveSplit, which is right here, and the first thing I'm going to do is I'm going to open the layout. So I'm going to go to open layout from file, and what you're going to want to do is you're going to want to find where, so I've got it on my desktop, so you just save it wherever you want and open this up. And so you'll see here the only file now is the layout, because that's the only one that LiveSplit can actually recognize in that format. So you can see right here, here's all the files in this folder, and then this is the one that we want, which is that one right there. So we're going to open that up. That will automatically load up this pre-made layout. I'm going to set this to game time on purpose. You want this set on real time, but I'm going to set this on game time just to show you an example of what will happen if this is set on game time, but you want it on real time. So skip that step. At this point, I'm going to open the main splits. So you can see here, there's the full route, main splits, Main+Boss, and Main+Boss subsplits. So I'm going to do the main splits. So you can see here we've got Prologue completed, Hands of Glory completed, Bloodmire Manor completed. You're basically just about ready to go already. There's only one more step to do, and that is right-click, go to Edit Layout, and you want to double-click Scriptable Autosplitter. Now this is the point where you will load the script. So at this point, browse, go to the file location. So for me it's desktop, right here, right there, and right there is what I want. It's Baldur's Gate BGDA2 Autosplitter version 2.0.ASL. You want the ASL file. It's automatically looking for an ASL file anyways, but just double click that and load it in here. And this is the reason I set it to game time. So if LiveSplit is set to game time when you load the script, this pop-up will come up, and it just says this game uses RTA real time as the main timing method. LiveSplit is currently set to show game time, load remove time. Some games have an actual in-game timer. Baldur's Gate 2, Dark Alliance 2 does have an in-game time, but every time you reload a save on like a death or something like that, it doesn't account for the time before that save. So if you save before a boss fight and then die and then reload before the boss fight, the time you spent in that boss fight doesn't get counted. It reverts back to the time from before the boss fight. So the auto splitter script includes a load remover. So anytime the game is loading, it stops timing it. I also just noticed there is a typo right here in auto splitter. I will fix that later. But so now at this point it says, would you like to set the timing method to real time? This will make verification easier. Once you click yes, if you click no, it should still load the script, but now the script is completely loaded. I'm just going to press OK for now, press OK here, and as you can see right here, it is LiveSplit is now set to real time, and that's what we want. With this layout though, it really shouldn't matter, and I'll show you why. But we're going to go back to edit layout, because if you're using this split file, there's still a configuration that you need to do, which is right here. You can expand all of these groups. So you got the main split points, which is right here, and that corresponds with this layout. And then there's just the boss fights. These are separated by act. So here's all the boss fights that you will have in Act 1, which is both when you reach the boss, there will be a split, and then when you defeat the boss, there will be a split. So the split when you beat the boss will be just the amount of time it took you to complete that boss fight. So this is all throughout Act 1, Act 2, Act 3, Act 4. There's one for reaching the boss, one for defeating the boss. And then here's the optional splits. These, like in Act 1, for example, there's multiple groupings. So you've got optional split points, Act 1, open that up, and then there's all of the optional splits for the Hands of Glory quest line, the Bloodmire Manor quest line. We'll get into that in a little bit. Point is, for this main splits file right here, which only splits on quest completion, what you want to do to set this up so it runs correctly is you want to just uncheck the boss fights and uncheck the optional split points. Unchecking this main box, it will gray out all of these, and so if this box isn't checked, none of these splits will occur. That's what we want for this layout. So if you've got the main split file loaded in like I do here, these two boxes should be unchecked. At that point, click OK, click OK. LiveSplit is set up, ready to go. You can go here to compare against and set that to personal best, best segments, best split times, you know, whatever you want to compare it against. Once you actually get some times in here and get it filled out, then you can mess with all of that. Also, just experiment with some of the settings and just see what they do. So now I'm going to load the Main+Boss splits. So Main+Boss splits is right here. I'm going to load that up. So now you see we've got Biletooth reached and then defeated, Harnack reached and defeated. So all of the reached splits are basically everything in between the boss fights. So once you defeat Biletooth, there will be no more splits until you start the Harnack the Butcher boss fight, and then that's when this split here will occur. So once you defeat Biletooth, which actually there's another typo right there that I'll have to go back and fix. So right here we've got Biletooth reached and then Biletooth defeated. So once the run starts, you'll be on this split, and then once you reach Biletooth, it'll then go down here to Biletooth defeated. Once you defeat Biletooth, it'll then go down to the next one. So this split will be the time of just the boss fight. This split is everything before it. Same with Harnack the Butcher reached. Once you defeat Biletooth, it'll split, and then everything in between that boss being defeated and Harnack the Butcher boss starting, then it'll split in time how long it takes you to defeat Harnack the Butcher. And then there's also the quest completion splits in here. And so there's quite a few splits in here. So that's why I've included the subsplits split file. So I'm going to open that one up real quick and show you the difference between the splits and the subsplits. So now that the subsplits are loaded, you can see that Biletooth and Harnack the Butcher and the prologue completion splits are grouped in this prologue group. Go down to Hands of Glory. The prologue splits then shrink, then collapse. The group collapses. So all you see is the time for the prologue. I prefer this setup myself because it just makes for a little bit nicer of a layout. The layout just looks a little nicer, and so the only groupings that you get are these. And you can go back and look at these at any time. Just scroll up and down with your mouse wheel. So this is the way I like to have it set up, but for the main splits, there is no groupings. For the main plus boss splits, you can have it either grouped or not grouped with... either the main boss splits is ungrouped, main plus boss subsplits is grouped. Subsplits are grouped, splits are not grouped. And then last, to set this up, you're going to want to go to Edit Layout, Scriptable Autosplitter, double click on that, and this time you're going to want to check the boss fights box. So if you're running main plus boss, main splits plus boss fights should be checked. Everything in these should be checked. These are all checked by default. So basically, as long as these two are checked, everything should run fine. But expand these categories if you want. Make sure everything is checked. Worst case scenario, you can go uncheck all, check all. That will make everything that was unchecked now checked. Just make sure you then uncheck optional boss or optional split points. So for this split file, main plus boss, whether it's splits or subsplits, make sure main splits is checked and make sure boss fights is checked, and every one of these is in there. And so with that, you're set up and ready to go with this split configuration. Now for the full route, things get a little bit, well, it's still pretty simple to get it set up and going, but if you want to customize it, it does get a little bit more complicated. But so first I'm going to open the full route. So as you can see here now, there is just an absolute metric ton of split points. This took a long time to put together. These are also grouped by default. I did not include a non-grouped split file because there's just so many. So if you're running this split point, or this split file, double click the scriptable auto splitter in the layout editor and then just check this box and then make sure every single one of these is checked. Again, the fastest way to do this, uncheck all, check all. Everything is now set up and ready to go. Now, the reason there's two timers set up on here. One is the main timer, the other is the load remove time, which is right here. It's this one. This way you can have both the real time, which is the actual accepted submission time, or you can have you can have the load remove timer just for data collection purposes. We don't use the load remove time right now. Once we get some data collected, and if the board happens to have, you know, like maybe a ton of PC runs and the old console runs get kind of phased out, or nobody just simply really does console runs, and there's a point in the future that we might start accepting the load remove time for this game. I'm not a moderator for this game, so I'm not, like, don't take that as like gospel or nothing. But it's just there just in case for the future if we want to use it. There is the possibility in the future it just gets removed altogether if that's what gets decided. Right now it's kind of just there. That's why in the scriptable auto splitter in the settings you can uncheck this and it just won't work at all. But that's also why it's mentioned here that it's an experimental feature. And also why I've provided this layout to have two different timers on screen. So real quick, I'll show you how that works. I'm just going to load up this game here really fast. All right, so I'm going to press Start New Game. And now it takes off. The timing starts when you first take control of your character. So it'll sit here on this loading screen, and then as soon as the level loads, it'll take off. There we go. So now we've got that. I'm going to skip forward a little bit so I can show you how this behaves during level transitions. I'm just going to skip past all of these guys here real quick. So, as I entered Trollbark Forest, we got the split. So now the Trollbark Forest will be timed from the time I enter Trollbark Forest to the time I leave Trollbark Forest. Same with the Red Goblin Lair and all the other levels. Now, while this is on the loading screen, you'll see that the load remove time has stopped, but this timer has continued. That's the way it needs to be. This time is not an officially recognized time. So just for the sake of making everybody's lives easier, we will go off of this time. So you don't want to just let this sit here for several minutes and be like, all right, yeah, I got plenty of time to just, you know, sit and relax, because that's not our official timing method. So that pretty much covers it. I will go into a little bit more detail here in just a minute on how to customize these. All right, so one pretty important thing to note with this auto splitter, if you go to speedrun.com and look up the rules, it says right here, the time ends as soon as you destroy the Onyx Heart after defeating Mordok, which is right here. It's this thing right here. I've defeated Mordok already, so as soon as I hit this with my sword, that's when time stops. So if you were in the past, before there was an auto splitter for this game, you would just manually stop your timer as soon as you break this thing. It's an in-game event, so there should theoretically be a memory value that changes when this happens, because it then triggers you to teleport out of this level and back to Baldur's Gate. But I was not able to find a memory value to trigger a split at this point. So the best I could do was to trigger the final split on the level transition from here, the Plane of Shadow, to Baldur's Gate. When that level transition happens, that's when it splits. It's about 2 seconds off. So I'll go ahead and start the splitter, and I'll just shoot right down to the end. So Act 4, final time. You'll see once I hit this, it'll be about 2 seconds, and then the level transition will occur, and the timer will stop. So here we go. And then that's where it stops. So for the purposes of runtime and submitting to speedrun.com, I'd say it's a safe bet to just go ahead and subtract about 2 seconds. I've tested all of the runs that I've done, the full runs that I've done, and all of them came out to be basically 2 seconds is the time difference. Usually moderators will, double check the time anyways, but to keep the time with the established rules for this game, once you break the Onyx Heart, that's where your time stops, and then it actually takes an additional 2 seconds for the timer to stop. So let's just say, for example, my time here is 20 seconds. What I would then submit would be 18 seconds rather than 20. Pretty sure the moderator will double check that anyway, but that'll give you a better idea of what your time is. In the LiveSplit settings, there's one thing you're going to want to do, and that's you're going to want to set global hotkeys. So that way, if you do happen to have any splits that either don't work, or if you happen to get a double split to where you go into one room and it splits twice for some reason, you want to set these up so you can skip a split or undo a split. This is especially important if you decide you want to customize the splits and maybe don't have the configuration just right. This will allow you to go forward or go backwards in your splits if needed. So now, let's say we want to customize this a little bit. I'm going to actually load up the Main+Boss splits. It'll be a little easier for this. So edit layout. Just remember, anytime you change your split file configuration, you need to go in here and edit your settings. So for this configuration, optional splits gets turned off. So let's just say you don't want it to split when you start a boss fight. You only want it to split when you end a boss fight, and those are the only splits you have. So game starts, the first split is when you defeat Biletooth. The next split is when you defeat Harnack the Butcher, and then the next is when you finish the prologue, and it's just like boss defeats rather than starting and finishing the boss fights. So to do that, all of these are named the same as they are found in here. So your main splits are just your quest completion splits. So this split point coincides with this split point. The name is the same. Same with the Hands of Glory completed. That one is right here. And then the boss fights are down here. So for prologue, if you wanted to just do boss defeat to boss defeat, and that be that, what you'd want to do is you'd want to uncheck Enter Biletooth Treasury, Biletooth reached, and uncheck Harnack the Butcher reached. You uncheck these two splits, and then you'd want to go in here, hit Edit Splits, and then delete Biletooth reached, and delete Harnack the Butcher reached. So at that point, you would only split when you defeat Biletooth, you'd only split when you defeat Harnack the Butcher, and complete the quest. So I'm going to reload this real quick. So now those are back. This is really this is easier to do if you have two instances of LiveSplit open. So that way you can do two things at once, because you can't edit your splits when the layout editor is open. So I'm going to do that. I'm just going to right click, open another instance of LiveSplit. I'll go back here to open layout, from file, open up the split layout, open splits, from file, and load the same split file. So at this point, I can go edit splits, and I can also go over here to this one, edit layout, double click scriptable auto splitter. And so let's just say, for example, I only want to do boss defeat to boss defeat all the way across the run. So we would uncheck Biletooth reached, we would delete Biletooth reached, you would uncheck Harnack the Butcher reached, you would then delete that split, and do this throughout the entire run. So Act 1, Argesh reached, uncheck that, Argesh the Gouger reached, remove that segment. Go down here to Atrocious reached, uncheck that, find the same corresponding split point in the split editor, remove that. Luvia's Beast, uncheck that, and remove that segment. And so you would do this for the entirety of the entire split file and in the layout settings. So remove that, uncheck that, and so now there'd be no other splits other than beating the boss, then beating the next boss, completing the quest, beating the boss, so on and so forth. So once you get this done, you press OK, and then you would want to make sure you save this split file as something else. So we'll call it BGDA2 Main plus Boss subsplits custom. So then because your layout isn't changed over here, the layout is the same on this one. Actually, I didn't even load it in, as a matter of fact. So over here, you'd then want to go to open splits, from file, and then actually load your custom setup with the layout that you currently just made to reflect that. You will also want to save your layout. So if you decide to change something else or have a different layout setup, or switch to a different game or anything like that, and then come back and reload this layout, it would automatically check everything. So just go to save layout as, and then save that, and we'll just say BGDA2 layout custom. So that way, if you were to load the layout that you were using, so we'll do, we'll load this one back up, and you can see here that, well, I don't even have the script loaded when I saved this. But yeah, then you'd have to reload this and go through that whole setup again, rather than just open layout and then from file, or right there in that list, and then do custom layout. No, I don't want to save that layout. So when you load this layout up, go to edit layout, your changes will be saved in all the boxes. I hope that's not too confusing. So I'm going to close this. Actually, no, I'm going to leave that open. So now let's go about customizing the full route splits. So let's open that up. Full route splits, edit layout, and uncheck, check all that way. Every single point is checked. And then over here, I will open the same split file, full route subsplits. And one thing to note is all of these split points, you've got the dash here, and then you've got the squiggly bracket here. This is how you set these up to be in groups. So if the dash isn't there, it doesn't apply it to a group. So I'll remove these dashes just real quick, just as an example. And then I'll also remove this squiggly bracket because that's the group name. So now none of these are in a group, whereas these are in a group. So to put these in a group, you would want to go to all of these, put a dash in the front, and then what you want your group name to be goes in the squiggly bracket. So we'll call that prologue, squiggly bracket. Okay, so now you can see that the group name is prologue and all of these belong to that group. So let's customize this a little bit. So like one of the splits that I feel like isn't maybe necessarily needed would be going back to Bloodmire Manor 1 after escaping from Luvia's laboratory. So to find that split, we would go to optional splits, Act 1, Bloodmire Manor, and then re-enter Bloodmire Manor after escaping laboratory. So you kind of have to be a lot more familiar with the route to be able to do this. It's not as simple to customize this layout and this split file as it is the main plus boss fights because the names are a little different. So let's just kind of go through from top to bottom exactly how this would be set up and how to find which split you want. So trade way would be all of the split points from room to room happen when you enter the next room. So the first split point is tradeway. So when you enter Trollbark Forest, that's when this checkbox split happens. When you enter the Red Fang Goblin Lair, that's when this triggers. And so this will keep timing while you are inside the Red Fang Goblin Lair. And then once you enter the next level, which is Biletooth Treasury to start the Biletooth boss fight, then it will split down. So if you want to split when entering a room, that will insert a split there and then go forward. So we've got the tradeway. When you enter Trollbark Forest, we go down. Enter Red Fang Goblin Lair, we go down. And then here's the boss fight. So you would go up to boss fights, find out where it is in the, whether it's Act 1, Prologue, Act 2, so on and so forth. Enter Biletooth Treasury, Biletooth reached. We split down here. Biletooth defeated. We split down here because we're still in Biletooth Treasury. So it's kind of like you just insert a split in the room because the boss fight is in that room. And then once you enter Wayfork Village, that is down here. And the optional splits on the prologue. And then once we get to the Harnack the Butcher fight, Harnack the Butcher reached, enter Wayfork Village in. Once you defeat Harnack the Butcher, then you, at that point, the next thing you do is talk to Rendala, and we complete the prologue. So move down a little bit. We're now in Baldur's Gate already. So once you complete the prologue, at this point now you're in Baldur's Gate because you kind of like teleport there. So then in optional splits, that's where this is right here. So once we enter the Purple Worm Inn to talk to Rendala to take a quest, and typically we would do the Hands of Glory quest first. So once you enter the Purple Worm Inn, this split occurs. Then once you take the Hands of Glory quest line and leave Baldur's Gate, or leave the Purple Worm Inn, that's right here. So enter Baldur's Gate after starting Hands of Glory. Then you enter the warehouse. This is where we duplicate items. So you duplicate your items, you leave the warehouse, you go sell those items. This split occurs when you re-enter Baldur's Gate. Then you sell all your stuff, you re-enter the warehouse here. That is this one. And then you've got the Hands of Glory Guild Hall when you enter that. And then once we start the Argash the Gouger boss fight, that's right here, Argash reached. Then when we defeat him, we split down here. We're in Argash's lair. Once we leave Argash's lair and re-enter Baldur's Gate, that would be this one right here. Enter Baldur's Gate after Argash defeated. And then that puts us here. And then once we enter the Purple Worm Inn, we go down to here. And then we talk to Rendala. We complete the Hands of Glory quest line. That's here. That puts us back down to the Purple Worm Inn. So it's a little bit confusing if it's related to a boss fight. Then it's in here under the boss fights. So basically, if you see a boss fight like Argash the Gouger, Biletooth, Harnack the Butcher, the split before that, even though it's not named Harnack the Butcher reached, that is the split right here. So let's see, that would be this one right here. So this Wayfork Village split, when you enter the inn and leave Wayfork Village and reach the boss fight, that's when this one happens. So the names are a little bit different. If you need any assistance whatsoever on this, please reach out to me. I just kind of set this up for my own personal use, really. So this could get a little bit confusing, but as long as you load the split files as they're provided and just make sure every box is checked according to which split file you're working with. So again, if you're just running main splits only, uncheck these two boxes. Main+Boss splits, check these two boxes, or if you're running full route, check these three boxes. That should be enough to get you going. And if you want to remove any splits, then you just need to find where that one, coincides. Just keep in mind that splits occur when you enter a room. So we'll just use this again, for example. Halls of the Hammer 1. Once you enter Halls of the Hammer 1, so when you're at the Highmoor ambush and enter Halls of the Hammer 1, then it will go down to Halls of the Hammer 1 on LiveSplit. Enter Halls of the Hammer 2, there's your split. And then it will time until you leave and start the Chimera boss fight. And for example, this split here, Halls of the Hammer 2 and Chimera, you would go down here to Act 2, Chimera reached. That's when you leave Halls of the Hammer 2 and start the Chimera boss fight. And then once you defeat Chimera, we go down to here. And then when you go back to Halls of the Hammer 2, that one is right here. Enter Halls of the Hammer 2 after defeating Chimera. And then enter Baldur's Gate after defeating Chimera. So I've done this in a way to where hopefully anybody can, set this up in any way that they want. But this should be enough to get you going for sure. So now let's talk about customizing the layout a little bit. I'm not going to get too far into the weeds on this. But I will just real quick, I'll put the splits in there. So now that there's the splits, you will see down here that there is no grouping. So if you want the splits to be grouped, you would use subsplits and not splits in this list option here. So since splits doesn't have the grouping feature, you can see the dashes and the squiggly brackets that we had talked about earlier. But for this, go to subsplits. You can change your total splits, so you can make your layout bigger, smaller. Upcoming splits, so as you can see, I'm scrolling down. As I get farther and farther down, there's only one more split in front of that. Increase this number, and you can get more splits in front of that, of where you're currently at. Show thin separators, so you got a little line in there. I probably should have had that checked already. So just play around with some of this stuff. So this one here, always hide subsplits. If you check that, then all of your subsplits will automatically be hidden, and it'll only show you the one that you're on. I like contextual subsplits because it doesn't expand the groups that you're not currently in. So this way it'll only show you where you are in the group, and the rest of the groups will get shortened. They'll collapse. And then always show subsplits, then every group is expanded at all times. So I like to leave it on contextual subsplits, but set this up however you want. Minimum number of sections before current section. So let's see. Okay, so as I get down here, increasing this number shows you how many is above that. So I like to just keep that at 2. And then here's just different colors, section headers, and all that kind of stuff. Timing accuracy, I like to leave it on tenths. And now this is where things get a little bit different. I'm going to load up my personal split file, just so there's some times in here for you to look at. So you can see now there's a lot of data on this. So this column here is just the split times for that particular room, and then this is the total runtime. So at 1:35, that's how long it took me to get through Tradeway. It took me 1:31 seconds to get through the Trollbark Forest, so a total time of 3 minutes 6 seconds. And then over here on this column is the load remove time, the total load remove time. I didn't put a load remove time for each individual level because that just kind of would have gotten excessive. So let's see, compare against, let's go with personal best right there. 1:16:41 is my best time on this. So as we scroll through here, you can see some of these are very short. 5 seconds. I know there's one up here that's like 2 seconds. There's 9 seconds. So there's a lot of them that you could probably be trimmed out if you didn't want to have as many. Like this one right here is only 2 seconds. Let's go back to edit layout and go to subsplits. And so you can see here, this first column is right here. I have that set to current timing method, which should be real time. Pace, that again will show you how far ahead or how far behind you are of your current run. So for example, let's just go ahead and start this, and let's say I happen to make it through Tradeway in like 8 seconds. That would be ridiculous, but there we go. So that would then show me that I was 1:10 seconds faster here and 1:10 seconds faster total. So now let's say, for example, I get through Trollbark Forest, and now right here you can see that it's at 15 seconds, 16 seconds. This is the time for that segment, this is the time for the overall run, and then this is the load remove time. So let's advance it forward. So there you can see I theoretically did this 1:17 seconds faster, and then my total run pace is now 2.5 minutes faster. And we'll do that one more time, and I'm going to let this one run over a little bit. The load remove times aren't being saved right now because the game isn't running. At least I think. They should be getting put over there too. I will investigate that in a minute. But you can see here now that it's adding. This will now be in the red. But I'm still ahead by 3 minutes 25 seconds. So that's just to give you an idea of what LiveSplit will look like once you actually get some times in here. Let's go back to subsplits. Yeah, I think it just wasn't writing those times down because the game wasn't actually running. But that should get you going for that. And then I've got some other stuff in here, like I like to use the detailed timer, which is this one right here. That'll give you your total time and then your segment time at this, on one timer. And then this timer here is configured to only read the game time. This is the load remove timer. And then got the world record here. I added that to the lineup the layout because there was one time I thought I beat the world record, had a big celebration, and then realized after the fact that I hadn't beat it. So I decided it was nice to actually have the world record right there if you're going for it. Previous segment will show you how far ahead or behind you were on your previous split. So we'll go here and let's just say So that'll show me my previous segment was 1 minute 15 seconds ahead, which you can also see right there. This is beneficial for when you get to the end of a group. So we'll just bust forward here real quick and hit that. So now that that group has collapsed, this previous segment will still show me that I was 11 seconds faster on this previous split. So that's really the only reason that's there. Comparing against, that's personal best. You can change that to whatever you want. So you can go down here, compare it against best segments, best split times. There's average segments. There's balanced PB, latest run. I just like to keep it on personal best and go from there. So that should be just about everything you need. There's the current comparison, current pace. Current pace will show you basically the same thing that's in this column, just in another spot. That might be easier to look at. Possible time save, that will show you, it will compare where you're currently at, or like your personal best. Say your personal best, you had a really bad boss fight, and you've done it before 30 seconds faster than your personal best. That'll show you how much faster you've done that compared to your best segment ever, rather than your best overall run. And that's what then the sum of best takes the sum of all of your individual split times, the best you've ever done, all your gold splits, adds them together, and that would be your theoretical time if you got gold splits everywhere. So feel free to customize the layout however you want. Feel free to customize the splits however you want. Just be sure to go in and check the boxes and make sure that you have the right amount of split points in your LiveSplit layout as you do down here in the scriptable auto splitter layout. There's a lot of information here, so if this is intimidating, go ahead, use Main+Boss. That'll be detailed enough probably for most people, but I like to have as much data as possible, sometimes too much. So hopefully this gets you going. Hopefully this was easy enough to follow. I really do kind of suck at these. So hit me in the comments, throw me a message, find me on Discord, email me if you have any questions. Do feel free to reach out to me if you have any questions whatsoever. In my opinion, there's no such thing as a stupid question, at least when it comes to this stuff, because it's all very, very confusing. At least it can be. But until then, good luck. Have fun.